All right, welcome to this edition of the Hoel Roofing and Remodeling Podcast. Today, my guest is a friend of mine, local business owner, Aaron Carlton. And, Aaron, tell us a little bit about your mower business, the areas you serve, and just tell us about your family.
Yeah, so I'm Aaron Carlton, Tri-County Outdoor Power here in Rush County. Been in the landscape business and kind of excavating and the outdoor service business for about 20 years. We bought Tri-County Outdoor Power Equipment about 3 years ago. My wife and I and 3 kids. It's kind of been a family venture, and then we've got a team of 8 to 12 guys that work with us on a daily basis to kind of keep things going. So we are in the mower, utility tractor, and light construction and excavating equipment.
So what, I know, do you still do any of the landscaping stuff?
I still do a little bit. Yeah, I kept a few accounts, so we still have a full-time outside guy and some part-time guys, and then I do some myself. I enjoy that. That's more of a therapeutic thing for me. You know, I don't like being indoors all the time, but we worked really hard for a lot of years to achieve some of those accounts. So that's what afforded us this opportunity to be where we're at now. So you don't just want to let those go, you know, and it's also something we could always fall back on in hard times if business changed.
What, and also I think you shared with me, you got some rental properties too.
Yeah, we got a few left. So, yeah, those have been good to us over the years too. So, you know, we got into that market when things were cheap and we did all the work ourselves, you know, a lot of blood and sweat, 3 o'clock in the morning, get back and go to work the next day and then go work again, you know. But yeah, those are other things that, you know, we maintain that have also, you know, kind of helped us get to where we're at.
I was gonna say we haven't flipped a house here in a little bit, but I mean that's what I tell people. Like when we started, like we were running the business during the day and working on the flip houses until midnight, 1 o'clock, and then finally, when our oldest was getting ready to start school, my wife's like, we have to get more of a schedule because I mean our kids is like since we've been doing this, like they're with us like. You'll hear one run around. One time we were doing a podcast, and I think we were talking about teaching your kid work ethic. No joke. My son starts weed eating, and he starts hitting the side, like right out here. The window. And you had to hear it on the. It was hilarious.
That's funny,
like
yeah.
We were just, but I mean, I didn't even tell him to weed eat. Like he just knew the weed eater was sitting there, and he looked and saw that the grass needed weed eated. So you know that's one thing that a lot of people don't understand with business. Like you have to scratch and claw, and you know
it's effort. I mean, it's all effort. It never stops. You know what I mean, it's just like, you know, it's kind of cliche, but I would say you have to embrace the suck. And like, you know, if you don't go past the point of comfortable, this hurts, this isn't fun. You know, I mean, I get up at 4:30, between 4 and 5 every day. You know, and then I start my day and my routine. And if I don't do that, there's things that don't get done that nobody ever sees. You know, that make everything else possible throughout the day. And you know, there's a lot of things that as a business owner, everybody, you know, you always hear it must be nice. And they don't know, I guess, the sacrifices that you make to achieve some of those things, I guess. You know, I mean, we're blessed to have the opportunities we have,
right.
And you have to make the most out of them. But any opportunity you get only comes based on your effort, you know. And so they don't see that, you know, the times where money was really tight. They don't see the times when you were working and sleeping 2 hours a day, 7 days a week to make sure that the bills got paid, because if you didn't finish this project, if you didn't get that rental house ready, the money was going to run out. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I wouldn't say it's times of desperation, but it's just times that you've got to go. Yeah. No matter if you're sick, you know, if you don't feel good, you know, there's never a day it's like, oh, I'm just going to sleep in today.
Right.
You know, there's not very many times I get up and spring out of bed and I'm like, you know, a ball full of energy. You know, you splash cold water in your face. And you get the wheels moving.
Yep.
And but I don't, you know, nobody sees that, you know, and a lot of people do that throughout their life, even for their rare day-to-day jobs. But you know, it's the sad part is I think you're looked down on sometimes when you do get certain opportunities. You know, well, what we have isn't something that we're entitled to. It's an opportunity that we have, you know, that we have to keep moving. And if we stop working, they're not perpetual machines.
Right.
You know, there's not a full tank of gas. Yep. You know, there's just enough gas in the tank all the time to keep the wheels moving. And so if we stop putting that gas in the tank, we'll stop dead in our tracks.
Well, and you know, and another thing is like your team's watching. So, you know, when I got into this, when I got into roofing sales, there was 2 sales managers at the company that I was at. and it was a reason why I got put with George. Like, this guy was a machine. He worked his you-know-what off. Like, he was a guy repairing shingles at 7 o'clock in the morning for his neighbors on a Saturday. The other sales manager was hitting the golf course at 11:30 Saturday morning. And there was just a difference. And like, he was like my dad. No matter what, it was never good enough.
Right.
I sold $150,000 in roofs. I beat the other guy by $40,000 last month. Well, I sure hope you got another $200 in you next month. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like, and I catch myself that with the guys, and I'm really bad in my sales. We've got a really good group of sales guys, and I'm always preaching like, enjoy it. Like, like our one guy, Nick, is pretty good about taking trips. Like, he went to, this is funny because I always say it wrong. I think it was Thailand last year. I kept saying he was in China, and they're like, hey, stupid. He's not in China. He's in Thailand. But he's also been to like Hawaii and stuff like that. So I'm pretty good about preaching this kind of stuff. Like, not the best at, practicing it, but a lot of people don't understand, like, there's always a new challenge. Like, there's that meme that goes out. It's like the emotions of an entrepreneur. And it's like, you're in the deepest valley and the highest hill within 12 minutes of the same day.
Oh, yeah.
Like, literally, like, we're trying to get this commercial contract locked down. And, well, we need this special insurance policy. Well, the price of the one policy we got quoted was a third of the value of the contract. And I'm like, okay, I'm literally not doing the work just to give an insurance company a bunch of money. Mm-hmm. And finally found a place that was a lot more reasonable,
right? Which
doesn't make sense. Like, literally, one was $20,000 and one was $3,000. Like, on a roof or a mower, like, there may be $1,000 difference or something.
Right.
But to me, I couldn't really, comprehend that. But it was like, and I felt like I was going to let that sales guy down if I couldn't get insurance bought for the right amount. And he understood the importance of, we couldn't do the job for nothing either,
right.
So, but one thing we've connected, just kind of talked shop before, and one thing that I felt like we connected a lot about was like our upbringing. I don't want to like piss a lot of people off, but I just feel like we're getting so soft now with our expectations with kids and stuff like that, where like lack of discipline or lack of respect. And I mean, a lot of people know that my dad was hard. My dad was really hard on us kids. And, he went through a divorce, and, my dad, I try to look at things different of like what caused you to be that way, like step back, like, and one thing I've really come to terms with in the last year or two, like my dad was a hardworking driver. Like my dad, he always had an 8 to 5, but we were always baling hay or feeding cattle or something like that on the side. So I went the entire entrepreneur route, where he kind of always had that steady paycheck, but always a side hustle is the term that it's used now. But I look back and now I was like, man, why? Because I mean, with us kids, like we were baling hay. At one time we were milking for 2 different dairy farmers. Like, I don't know how we actually really did it.
Right.
All while my dad had a full-time job, and then he wouldn't ever let us detassel corn because that was during hay baling time. Mm-hmm. But he would let us go in the mornings and de-road corn because that's when the dew was still on.
Right.
And we couldn't
be
baling
yeah.
hay. So we were leaving at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to go de-road corn, and it's just, But I ran into a guy the other day, Ed Meyer, down by kind of New Salem area, and he watched us in 4-H, me and my brother and my sister, us older kids, grow up through 4-H. And he's like, you know what? He's like, your dad was hard on you kids. But he goes, I always saw his heart. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I've finally stepped back and looked at and realized was, so my grandpa, his father, was paralyzed from building a pond when my dad was in the 1st grade. So it was my dad and his 2 sisters. Mm-hmm. And they had 80 acres. I mean, that was 60 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And they had a hired hand that honestly, I believe, and I can't think the hired hand's name down. My dad's going to be disappointed in me in the story, but he actually had something wrong with his arm where one of them wasn't even fully functional. So as a 1st grader, my dad had to help run the farm with the hired hand. So he didn't have a child. Like, he didn't get to play.
Right.
Like, he literally... he had to work, so now I kind of understand why, like, he just ingrained work ethic. I mean, just ruthless. Like, and I mean, and I appreciate my dad. Like, one thing my dad always did is, we played football. He loved football, and he was at every single game. I remember one game he missed because me and my brother were stupid, and we told him the game was home and it was actually away. And he pulled up, and he was pissed at us that night when he showed up to the game and the game wasn't there. And where it was at, like, it wasn't worth the drive.
Sure.
Because it was a away game, because he was just getting there on time, So one thing that I respect about my dad, but I mean, we've talked some, with your upbringing and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a choice. Like, if I didn't work, we didn't eat. Dad was in a car wreck and didn't work anymore after I was 12, and so it was my dad, my sister, and I in the house, and so it was the only income, and he worked 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and this stopped everything. So it wasn't, I love sports, but it wasn't an option anymore. You had to go to work. So, and I think that, with that, I saw opportunity in being a hard worker, which that's a blessing and a curse. You know what I mean? Like, that becomes, it's no different than any other kind of addictions or problems we develop over life. That was kind of how I got patted on the back and felt rewarded. So it wasn't always a necessity. It became kind of an addiction. I want more work. Yep. And so then, like, fast forward all those years, baled hay, every day in the summer, threw hay, moved hay, worked at body shops part-time, and then did hay, and then delivered pizza at night once I got my license, and get through high school. And then, talk about having mentors. I graduated high school, I worked for this bridge company. Well, two of the sons that were still worked at the bridge company, they were probably in their 30s and 40s, but they worked with us every day. They never sat in the truck and barked orders. They got down in the mud and the muck and worked with us every day. And I think that when I look at our team at Tri-County, like, nobody works for us. That's insulting to me. You know what I mean? Because absolutely. Like, if I work as hard for them as they do for me, and if we're not working together, we don't achieve anything. So nobody works for me. They don't owe me anything. You know what I mean? There's opportunities around every corner. So I think those guys doing that, and they pushed hard. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, good job, take the day off. We got one really hard, suck job done that looks impossible. We built entire bridges start to finish with 4-man crews. You know what I mean? And people are like, no, there's no way. Well, we did. And we just worked one, you solved, it was an elephant. You just took one bite at a time, and then, move forward. My career in the fire service is kind of the same way. And I think that we talk about being soft and not wanting to insult anybody. It doesn't fear me to insult somebody. What I think is the irony in that is when somebody comes in, or if I'm talking to somebody like, this new generation of kids just don't want to work. This new generation is this and that. It's not the kids' fault.
Right.
They act the way they act. You're a product of your environment and how you're raised. I mean, we're prime examples of that. So if our kids are soft and they're lazy, it's because we allowed that to happen. Yep. We are responsible for their actions until they're adults and out of the house. So if their action is to sit in their bedroom all day on their phone, that's our fault.
Yep.
So I think that we'll see this trend until parents, this is a hard hit to some people's face, until we take the ownership that we create them, you know what I mean? And then we mold them throughout their life. If they have a bad group of friends, we have to be involved enough in their life at a young age to stop that before it becomes a major problem. Yep. And I think that we use the excuse a lot. Well, I have to work to feed them, so I'm not there a lot. That might be a fact, but get up earlier.
Right.
Stay a little later, figure it out, wake them up when you get home. I mean, like, it's all effort, you know what I mean? And it sucks. It's not easy. I mean, a lot of people just want to come home. Oh, I had a long day. I just want to sit on the couch. Like, I think that the one thing that, I'm such an anti-lazy person that some people think it's over the top, but I think that it intrigues me a little bit that we make all these different excuses and find this different reasoning for our actions. At the end of the day, they're all excuses.
Right.
You know what I mean? Bad stuff's going to happen. Obstacles are going to show up. Like, just keep grinding and working. Sometimes we're going to go backwards.
Right.
But you just got to keep grinding and working. You know what I mean? We can make all the excuses you want. I've had 2 big back surgeries. I had to medically retire from the fire service against my will. I went to like 8 doctors trying to say I can still work. You know what I mean? But I've been cut in half and fused a few times. So you're not suitable for this job anymore. Right. Well, I'm not disabled. I might not be able to do that job anymore, I'm not going to go sit on the couch and feel sorry for myself and be like, all right, I can't do anything. And they told me I'm disabled. You know what I mean? So I think that it's all a mindset, and we get to choose what that is. We get to choose how our children are raised. I would say that my kids, and I think, that's important for young guys getting into business to know, your wife and your kids sacrifice equally with you.
Oh, absolutely.
You might be tired and hurting more, but my kids haven't had me present like my friends that work an 8-to-5 job and they're home every evening.
Right.
They get to see them go to school every day. My kids have never seen that. I'm gone before the sun comes up, and I get home 10, 11, midnight, a lot, still to this day. My son's 17, graduates this year, and I remember looking at him when he was 15 going, when did you get that big?
Right.
You miss a lot, and I think that to be a startup entrepreneur, not a second generation or third generation, and there's nothing wrong with the second or third generation. That's what, if you're a second generation entrepreneur, that's what your parents, your father, whoever gave you that opportunity, that's what they wanted for you.
Right.
So it's not, I don't fault them for being there, but don't waste that opportunity they killed themselves for you to get.
Right.
So a second generation entrepreneur sacrificed before they got there, because if their parents were the startup, dad or mom, they sacrificed that time and attention with the parents. So I think that as an entrepreneur or as someone who has business on their own, it takes extra effort to make sure your kids stay constructive. They are more, they're looking at us.
Right.
They're looking at us. So, we have to, if we have a bad reputation, especially in small communities that we operate in, those things affect our kids.
Right.
I don't take care of issues and problems that I know aren't ours all the time because I think it's always the right thing to do.
Right.
I do it sometimes because it's the necessary thing to do. I have to do it to protect, because there's our team, just like yours, they're good men.
Right.
And they show up and they work hard to feed their families.
Yep.
So I'll never talk bad about another business, no matter what I've heard or what I know, because, you could sell a job or I could sell a piece of equipment, and somebody could have a bad experience in their opinion.
Right.
And they're
right.
entitled to that. But you could have done everything in your power to make it right and above and beyond. But when they tell everybody, and those people tell 5 people, you always ask somebody, what have you heard bad about them?
Right.
Is it first hand, second hand, third hand, or, how far did this telephone game go? So, you have to do things, in business sometimes that are necessary to protect the reputation and the integrity of your family, the people who eat off that. I would never talk bad about a business, because the men at your business or at another outdoor power equipment place, they have families and responsibilities. And because I heard one bad thing, that's not fair it's deeper than just trying to take a business from somebody.
Right,
what I mean?
right.
You're affecting kids and generations and how people take care of their lives.
Right.
So, I think that if you take all those things into play, it's, everybody sees oh, I want to start my own business.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would weigh out again, if I was doing life all over again, I wouldn't change a lot of things. And I can't believe that I've been given the opportunities I've been given. But I would probably weigh some things out that I've done, because I did miss a lot with my kids.
Right.
And I have a kid that's going to leave the house forever that he missed a lot.
Right.
His buddies are real close to their dads. They hunt, they fish, they do all this stuff together all the time. We haven't done a lot of that,
Right.
And I think that at the end of the day, that is something that when somebody's mad at us about something, that's why we take it so personal for us. That's why, you never get angry, but that on the inside, those are the things that people don't see that you torment with
Right.
as a small business owner,
Well, and you have to be intentional, and there's certain things that we tell ourselves, and I've tried to be better at trying to drop the kids off some. Just me and my wife, we're always juggling she does a lot of the scheduling, which we're taking care of that with hiring a gentleman in to kind of take that, because I really got to give her, I want her to be back. I want her to be able to spend more time as a mom, because she's a lot better at me. When I get home and I just want to sit down, and she's over there talking to the kids. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like a piece of crap dad, because she's as wore out as I am.
Right.
And, here she's being intentional about listening to the kids talk about, talking about their day and everything.
I could echo the same thing. Yeah, on that. Yeah, same exact thing. Yeah.
It's just like, and I'm like, and I'll be real honest. Like, I looked at myself at the end of last year, and I was going home angry, and I was taking it out on my wife and kids over crap at the office that, like, I kind of had a reflection that some days my kids didn't like me. And I don't mind them when they get a little older if they don't like me.
Right.
When I'm disciplining them, like,
it's why do they not like you?
Right.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, I'm grumpy because this person did this that has nothing to do with my kids. So I'm just trying to be more intentional this year on, like, if I take them to school, keep the phone down, keep the radio off, because my kids are 4, 6, and 8. Like, they see a cow in a pasture and they start telling me some story that I'll never remember in 2 days, but they're so excited, to tell me. And I've tried to be, I don't know, I've tried my best to try to be more intentional with some time. Like, I want them to see the hustle and grind. But I also don't want them growing up hating the business and hating me.
Right.
Because I've said this a million times. I want a successful family over a successful business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If my son's on drugs when he's 14 and my daughters are pregnant at 16 and my wife's got a boyfriend, we failed. Like, there was a quote that I just seen from RoofCon that I was at a couple years ago this week, and it said, no amount of outside success can make up for inside your home failure, pretty much.
Right. Absolutely.
Kind of thing. So, I mean, that is one thing that, and I'm very fortunate, we're both fortunate, because there's nobody that's built the businesses that we have without the support of the wife and the kids. Like, there's, I know some people think the entrepreneur lifestyle is a rich guy with 3 girlfriends that's got a wife at home that doesn't say anything and doesn't care that he's got 3 20-year-old girlfriends, but that's not true. Like, the highly successful guys have been married for years and truly, like, hell, they believe in us more than we believe in ourselves some days.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And, like, that's the truth. Like, and I tell me and my wife have this conversation a lot. Like, I want the kids to see the struggle, because I don't want them growing up like, oh yeah, my mom and dad have this big company, and act like it was handed. Because, like you said, like we kind of said earlier about second and third generation businesses, like, there's a whole level of respect for that to me. Like, some of them don't know the hustle and the grind to get it off the ground. Mm-hmm. However, I respect them that they've come in, because, and Dave Ramsey always says this, like, if your son takes over the mower business and my son takes over the roofing business, like, that's going to be the hardest transition ever, because, like, that's our baby.
Right.
Like, you remember what it cost you in money, in blood, in sweat and tears.
Sure, absolutely.
And we got to have enough faith and know that we mentored and loved our sons well enough, or our kids in general.
Right.
It doesn't have to be a son that, my daughter could take over the roofing company too. But we also have to be willing to let that go. And they have a different vision, a different idea. And I mean, I have that sometimes with Adam with marketing. Like, I've pushed back on some of his ideas, and, vice versa. And, like, sometimes I'm just challenging him because I just want to see, like, how's he going to come back? Because one thing that I told Jonathan, new production guy that's here, I was like, I want conflict. Like, I don't want argument, but I want you to challenge. I don't want you to think that you have to be a yes man, like, that only I come up with good ideas.
It creates constructive conversation.
Yes.
I mean, you sometimes you can talk it out and figure out problems or solutions before you get there. Yep. You can hit the roadblocks in conversation. And it happens to me all the time. I have a great idea. I have this brilliant idea, and then I'm like, oh, well, that's really not possible. You know what I mean? So it happens all the time. And yeah, and you don't want your children, if they choose to take my daughters or my son, whatever, choose to take over either of the businesses, I wouldn't want them to have to do what I did to get there.
Right.
Because I did this so my grandkids can have their parents around. You know what I mean? I did this so my kids don't have to just live their life hustling 7 days a week. You know what I mean? So success to me isn't I've achieved a certain amount of money in the bank.
Right.
Success to me is my kids don't have to do the same things I did to raise their family. Success to me would be my grandkids my son watches his son or daughters grow up all the way through and doesn't miss anything. my daughters aren't wondering if they can buy diapers and they can afford to have things they need to take care of their family, and their kids enjoy it. That's what I'm looking for to achieve. You know what I mean? Money has no value to me other than it's a means to create that for them, you know? And then the ultimate success would be able to, your family create that, and to be able to take whatever your opportunities afford you to do, and then I'm not a spread the wealth guy, but I'm a help anybody else who's that is worthy of the cause, so to speak, if that makes any sense. I guess that's kind of a complex one, you know, that we could go down a rabbit hole with that one, but that's what we're looking for.
You have to be generous, and you know, and the same thing. Like last night, we're finishing Orange Christian Church. I went out there, was talking, and there's the lady I was speaking with, her daughter, her son-in-law. Actually, we used to, speaking of milking cows, we used to milk on their farm. Long story short, my older brother lives in Kentucky, on their farm in Kentucky. He moved down there for college, and they were talking about one of my sales reps, and you know, bragging like how good he was, and you know, and Chris, great dude. Like I get that compliment, such a nice, kind, caring gentleman. And I said, yeah, I mean, he's been great. He's worked his butt off, but I've given other people the same opportunities, and they haven't. They haven't, you know, and it's like. And for a business owner, it's like, how long do you give that person an opportunity before you're like, okay, my time is better off invested in this person?
It's the hardest thing you do.
Yeah.
Hands down, the hardest decisions you make are based on the people on your team and the investment you make into them. And so for us to be successful, it's 100% based on the team, 100% based on the team. So, you know, like, our service manager came in the door this morning, and as soon as he walked in the door, I said, hey, we need to get on this, this, and this. And I said, sorry, time out. I said, how you doing today?
Right.
He starts laughing. I was like, sorry about that. I was like, hey, how you doing this morning? Did you have a good night? You know, he's laughing. I was like, I apologize. Like, I've been here for 3 hours, and, you know, my brain's already spinning 150 mile an hour. So, but you want people that are doing the same thing on their drive in. I don't expect our team to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, you know, but we can't win if their wheels aren't turning like mine are.
Right.
You know what I mean? If what you're looking for, I think one of the most rewarding things that we get sometimes is the fact that, like, you get somebody that works with you, and they come in and be like, hey, I was thinking about this last night. It means they care. They're thinking about how to get to the next level. And you can't think of everything, you know, and you can't do everything. But like you said earlier, it's your baby. And so in the beginning, you did everything. And as you grow as a small business, you have to start delegating some of those things out. And it's hard for you to understand, and it's hard, you know, in the service industry like we are with equipment, it's hard for customers to understand sometimes, because as you grow, you know, you genuinely want to be able to personally connect with every customer.
Right.
But it's not possible, you know, for the team to be successful and to achieve more resources for them to make their lives better and to make more resources for the business to grow. Like, you can't do that. And those are really dealing with that, and then weighing out the value of the team member. You know, if you have somebody that you're investing X, Y, Z dollars in, and they're only producing X, like, how long do you go? Maybe, and it could be your fault. It could be my fault that they're not producing what they should be, but at the same time, do I have the time to invest to fix that? You know, I created the problem because I overestimated my ability to help them achieve that, or overestimate their abilities to achieve that on their own. And that's a really hard thing to gauge. And I think that hands down, not taking every phone call, not handling every problem and situation, and then how to choose when somebody has to go is the most painful, stressful things that take years off our life that you'll ever deal with.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, and there's some training that a lot of the team have went through, and part of it is, like, how's that a direct reflection of you? So like you said, like, at the end of the day, it's our problem. Like, if the guy overpromised wrong on a roof or whatever, like, our name's on it, you know. Somebody promises something, and especially living in a small town, like, getting better. But before, when I first started sending sales reps out, like I had people offended, like, well, I thought Bob was going to be here. And they're like, Bob's got like 40 people working today. Like he doesn't have time to think for himself. Like, you know, because I actually, a really good friend called me and asked me for a roof quote. And I went out and did it. It took him 3 weeks to get it to him. I said, Bud, that's why I give it to a sales rep.
Right.
Because he's going to have it done. If he doesn't have it done in 24 or 48 hours, I'm on his butt.
Right.
Like, hey, you know, and, you know, so finally, like I said, people, you know, understand that. But, and I always tell people, like, I don't want people to know who I am. Like, I don't have to be the face. Like, doing this podcast, you know, I guess I'm the face of this. I'm actually getting ready, since my wife's, it's funny you said that, you know, you were like telling your service manager this, and this. That's the problem with me running sales and my wife running production, because I'm like, what's going on with this, and this? And it's like 10 o'clock at night. And she's like, I'm ready to shut down. Well, what's going on with it? And she's
Same
like,
thing,
just leave me the hell alone for right now, you know? And I can't, like, and then I'm like, 30 minutes later, I think of something else. I'm like, all right, I'll just send her an email.
Your entire relationship becomes work.
Yes.
You know, it does. And it's another, you can't do it without them.
Yep.
But it's almost impossible to do it with them and maintain a healthy relationship, because every conversation you have is work.
Right.
You know, it's not how was your day. It's why didn't this get done?
Right.
When does this get done?
Yep.
You know, and you become business partners.
Yep.
Over husband and wife.
Yes.
And it's a real thing. It doesn't matter how strong your relationship is going into something like that. It happens so slow that you don't even see it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so I agree with you. And that's we were going out Saturday night with a couple, and it's one of the guys from the shop, and we were going out and we're talking about work. We get about 30 minutes away, and my wife's like, "Are we going to talk about work all night?" And then I got dead silent. I was sitting there trying to think of something else to talk about. And so I was like, I don't have anything else to talk about. Like, their kids are out of the house, so they're not in sports anymore, you know. And I don't want to tell, you know, I mean, we brag on our kids enough. Right. So I'm like, well, how's, and then it was work again, you know. Right. I asked how was something else they did, but it was related to work. So and my wife's always like, that's all you think about is work. That's your whole life. But it is our whole life.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, what else do you do?
Right.
You know, I mean, your hobbies. I haven't been hunting in 3 or 4 years. Yeah. You know, I love to do that. My son and I used to go dirt bike, you know, all the time. We haven't done that once this summer. Right. You know what I mean? Like now, because he works, he's 17, a senior this year. The last 2 years, he's taken over some of the outside maintenance and a couple of his buddies, and they're responsible for that. So in his free time, when he's not at a practice or doing something for school, even all through the summer, he's working.
Right.
So your whole life gets consumed with it. And yeah, you know, being able to separate and give your wife more time with the kids is not only a benefit for the kids and a benefit for her. I mean, it's in your marriage, and your business will do better, because there's certain positions as the company grows, you know, and our wives really are responsible for us getting income in, people getting paid. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be terrible just setting the payroll. I wouldn't know how to do the payroll.
Oh yeah,
no idea.
That's literally like when somebody starts, I'm like, ask her when payday is.
Oh yeah,
because I couldn't tell you if it's this Friday or next Friday.
Right. You know, I don't have it. We pay off. I mean, hundreds of machines a year. Right. I would have no idea how to do one. Right. You know. Right. I mean, so there's so many intricate parts of our business that I think sometimes that we take for granted too as husbands. You know what I mean? Like we're such pushers. Yep. You talk about your dad pushing you. We're pushers. You know, I mean, I've pushed my kids so hard that I'm like, if I don't see you almost like walking off a court or a field, like crawling, like I'm like, where's the effort? Right. You know, I'm like, you didn't. I'm like, you know, good job. You could have done better tonight. Right. You know, I don't care how many points you score. Right. You know, but I think that I always tell my kids, I don't care how good you are, just don't be outworked. Yeah. The only thing that ever disappoint me is if you're getting outworked. You know, there's no reason for that. And, you know, I think a thing that hit me that saw that my son is watching me, or he does hear me sometimes, because sometimes I think he looks at me like, you're an idiot. You know what I mean? Like he will. And you wait till they get, you know, in teenage years, you know, I mean, that's in, you know, you do become an idiot. You know what I mean? Kind of, they don't ever say that, but you feel like, I start to feel that separation that I had kind of with my dad. Like, oh, he doesn't know anything. You know, the one person you looked at for everything all of a sudden becomes the dumbest person in the world. Yep. And, but I was in his room the other day, and he had a sign that he put on there that says, don't get outworked. Yep. It's as a door as he walks out every day. I'm like, he does listen.
Yeah.
You know, and he is a hard worker. You know, he does hustle. He does work hard. You know, and they are good humans. So it's like maybe it's not all bad to be raised in that environment.
Right.
You know, it's not all bad, but yeah, I think there's a lot to maintain in a marriage in this world.
Well, and my wife asked me that the other day. She said, I wish we could have normal conversations. She's like, it's either work or kids. I'm like, but what is normal? Like, and me personally, like, I don't want normal. Mm-hmm. And she doesn't really either. But I also understand, you know, where she's coming from. Because, you know, and you know, life is such a balance of like, and, you know, all my friends are work related mm-hmm. or business owners related. And, like, she even said that. She's like, you know, she's like, and I mean, I literally have a friend that he's actually, I think he just got on Carmel Fire Department, lives around Greenfield, and we need to schedule it again. He's come in, good Christian friend, and we just had lunch. We just grill out in the shop, and he's like that one friend that I can just talk to that really isn't like business related or work related. Like, I love my team. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, Adam loves disc golf. I love hearing when he talks about that. You know, a couple of our guys are engaged. They're planning their weddings. You know, a couple of them's got young families. So, like, you know, the young man that just moved here, Jacob from North Carolina, his little girl turned 4 yesterday, and she's like, she could be a doll baby. She's like the just tan, cutest little blonde girl in the world, and Bobby, mm-hmm. and like just has my heart. Right. And like the other day, like she told me a couple weeks ago, my birthday's coming up. I was like, really? I was like, what do you want to do? And she's like, I want to go to El Reparo. I was like, oh, I love El Reparo. Mm-hmm. Let me know if I can come or something like that. And her dad pulled me aside last week. He's like, hey, she hasn't shut up about you going to El Reparo. Right. And so then and I was like, remind me. And he reminded me twice on Monday. And then, of course, something like was coming up that I could have used the excuse. I told my wife, I was like, nope, we're going to go eat lunch mm-hmm. or supper with Hannah, and we'll go deal with that afterwards. Right. Like, you know, because like you realize, especially when they're that little, how much they idolize you. Right. And like, I'll tease my wife because she's got way too many shoes. And then, you know, or pairs of jeans or whatever. And then the other day I catch my son harassing her. I was like, acting just like me. Yeah. I'm like, it's like, hey, boy, I'm married to her. Yeah. I can do that. Yeah. And plus your mom works her butt off. Yeah. So if she wants an extra pair of boots, you know. Right. But I was just like, gosh darn it, because like I know he's watching. Like mm-hmm. The kids would be being loud and they'd be running down the hallway. And I'd be like, hey, can you guys shut up so I can run a business around mm-hmm. here? And one day, I think it was Adam told me, my oldest girl, her brother and sister's being loud, and she's like, they're playing dad. Mm-hmm. And she's like, hey, can you shut up so I can run a business around here? I was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, I was like, okay, all right.
They don't miss anything. They don't miss anything, you know. And so, like, you know, there's part of you that wants them to turn out to be just like you, you know, but there's part of you, too, that you don't, like, because if they turn out just like us, we won't have relationships with them. Right. Because, you know, I mean, I seen it in myself with, you know, time I spent with my dad. And so if my son's just like I am and he has a family, I spend time with them, like, you'll never get any time with them. Right. So if we don't, like, you know, I think the ultimate failure for me would be not to get to the point where my kids aren't working 100 hours a week. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because what I desire is that relationship with them going forward, you know? So we have a thing down at Tri-County. It's family first always. Like, if you have something going on with the family, I don't care how busy we are. I don't care how many people are mad they don't have their equipment back yet. Right. You have to go do it, you know? If something happens at school or if a mom or dad gets sick in the middle of the day, like, I don't care how busy we are. I don't care how much chaos is going on. Right. Leave. Right. You know? Text me. Don't even come find me. If I'm busy, just text me. Right. You know, there's never a time when there's something going on with the family that we have something more important to do with the tractors or UTVs or ATVs or lawnmowers. There's nothing more important with that than your family. So I get a lot, why don't you practice what you preach? Right. But again, like, I mean, we birthed this.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if we want that to happen, you know, we have to be present to make sure it's happening. So it's two fools. But yeah, the you know, investing time in your team and their family is the only way we're successful.
Right.
You know, we just talked about that yesterday, doing a company thing with the wives. You know, we have some meetings and stuff we go to that we'll have to close down for a day, and the whole team will go, but the wives don't go. You know, so you know, we talked about, you know, we need to do what we're going to do. You know, some sort of retreat with everybody, kids, wives, everything. You know, whether it's in a big cabin or whatever it might be, because it's important that we all care about each other. The only way to do that is to develop those relationships intentionally. You know what I mean? It's not for show. It's not a reward. You know, it's because I want to know your family. I want your kids to know me. I want you to know if you have a problem or if you're struggling with something, like, we're here for you. You know what I mean? So I think I'm not a very emotional guy, so I'll try not to touch on things that get me real emotional. But like, I think the thing for me was the night my dad died. Everybody was there, and stood out in the rain for 3 hours. And I'm like, "What are you guys doing? Go home." They're like, "We're not leaving till you do." I didn't call any of them on how they knew. Like, how's that happen? Like, how do you, like, I mean, you don't feel worthy of that kind of stuff. But to have people that care about you enough to drive 45 minutes or a half hour and stand in the rain, that they wouldn't even go inside. We're just here if you need us. Like, I mean, probably one of the most, as a business owner, I guess, or as, I don't like to call it a business owner. I like to call it as a opportunity receiver. You know, it's kind of one of those things. You know, like, I've had failed businesses, and I always call them like failed attempts anymore, like, because like, you have to try. So, you know, and you know, those taught me something. There was lessons in that. So, but you know, like, to get to a point where I have men around me that care enough to come stand in the rain in my darkest moments, like, I mean, you win.
Well, and you and me are cut from the same cloth. Like, I'm the type that, like, I won't keep a scorecard, but like, I always want to be one up on you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I would be the first one to go, like, if that happened to Adam's dad, like, I'd be the first one to be there, but like, you never expect it in return.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and I was just talking to Chris, one of my sales reps, last night, like, there's three of them, Nick, Chris, and Cody. They've been buddies since like 6th grade. Them boys are all sales guys. They're the competitive mother, you know what, there are. But they will do anything tomorrow to help the other one out. Like, they want to beat them in sales. They want to smoke them bad. They want to talk trash and tell them they suck. But, like, them guys, like, you know, they're so loyal. And, you know, we were talking earlier about, like, kids and stuff. And, like, you know, yeah, there's lazy kids. There's lazy our generation has lazy people. Our parents, you know what I mean? But, like,
lazy people create lazy people.
Like, you know, and, like, I'm very fortunate, like, you know, and one thing that we're trying to figure out on, like, the best sales team. Like, I've heard people talk about, like, you know, culture is the buzzword, like, you know, but actually caring and, like, showing up. Like, one of my guys wrecked their truck on Sunday a couple weeks ago, and I was in Newcastle. He was in Anderson. I just told him, we was out in the family. I said, get in the truck. We're going to go up there. You know, didn't have to. It could have been towed to my house. He was fine, you know, but it's just like, you know, and that's the secret sauce to our success, is like actually caring. But it's just, it's in our DNA, where some people will be like, oh my gosh, like, he's doing that as a selfishly, just, you know, but it's not, because we spend hours stressing over, like, providing this opportunity. You're like, okay, am I paying this person enough?
Absolutely,
like, you know, this person's got talent. He could go over here and make more money. And I could do nothing but happy if he does, you know, or whatever, you know, whatever that looks like. And yeah, it's just like, you know, we've done a couple team retreats. Absolutely do that. You know, just as, you know, just one business owner to another. Like, I'm part of a roofing mastermind group, and I've been to retreats on their stuff. And I've been fortunate enough to take Adam to do some videography stuff. He's been on, I think, 2 of them now, and he comes back and he's just like, "Holy cow! No wonder you love that group." And it's a group of men that are trying to leave a legacy. And I mean, that's what you're talking about. Like, what's your legacy going to be? Like, what's your legacy on your kids? What's your legacy on your grandkids? Man to man, I'm going to challenge you a little bit of like being intentional with your kids. I know they're getting older, but if you're telling your team to do it, and I'm just as bad. Like, do a little bit of that. Like, one thing I've done with my son is I took him to an Alabama football game last year. I don't know what's wrong with my son, but he's an Alabama fan. I don't think the football game's going to happen this year because we had our fall's been crazy with weddings and stuff. But, like, fortunately for me, like, February slows down. So I took him to a Kentucky basketball game. And, I still hear him tell people about going to that game. And I actually we went on a father-son trip to St. Thomas right before school started. And it was through the Revolt group, the roofing owner group that I'm part of. And William is their videographer. William's a good friend. And they did testimonials. And they said, "Rhett, what was your favorite part?" Rhett's 8 years old. And we went like night kayaking. I can't swim. So and the bottom of the kayak is clear with lights down there. So I'm just kind of rowing, okay? And he's like, "Dad, I see this." And I'm like, I don't even want to look down because it scares the you-know-what. I mean, I got a life jacket.
Right.
I'm fine. He's got a life jacket. But, it's all in my head. And we went over to, now I'm going to I can't think of the island. We rode a ferry over there, and like probably the prettiest beach ever that I've ever seen, and done some really cool things. And William's like, "Rhett, what was your favorite part?" He's like, "I just got to spend time with my dad." And he's like, "What do you mean, Rhett?" He goes, "Well, just when we're at home, he's just always running the business." I was like, here's this 8-year-old kid that like, that's what he says. And I'm like, "Bud, like, he doesn't understand the reason I'm doing this isn't for a truck or an ego. It's like, I want to give him the opportunity." Like, I mean, I love my dad. My dad's the type that's always going to work. But, I love my mother-in-law. She's the type that's always going to work. She still works in a factory. Like, the reason my wife's the hardest working woman I know is because of her mom. And I mean, but me and my wife have this conversation. Like, I want her to be able to be like a grandma. Like, and my mother-in-law is fantastic. And Debbie's watching this, like, I love her to pieces, but she's still got to go to work every day. And it's like, I want Emily to be able to, like, if she wants to go on a field trip with the grandkids, like, there's not even a question. Like, right. Absolutely. Like, and that's, and I know that my son will grow up one day and be like, "Holy cow, like, this is what my dad came from, a broken family." Like, I've said this before, like, I will do anything to keep my family together. Like, I didn't grow up with a loving mom and a loving father in the same house. And come high, hell, or water, I'm human. I make stupid mistakes. Absolutely. I say stupid stuff to my wife. And thankfully, she's full of grace and very forgiving. But, like, I really want my kids to grow up and be like, "Holy shit, mom and dad really loved each other." And like, this sounds really weird to say, and some people don't understand it. It's like, sometimes I just sit back and I admire my wife loving my son. I mean, my mom loved when I was 2.
Right.
So like, and there's a couple ladies that love me like their son, and I love them dearly. But still, like, I don't have that mom,
right? That connection,
that call right now and be like, in here, like, and Mary Jane and Melissa are 2 phenomenal ladies. I mean, love me with every ounce of their heart. And I could call them right now, and they're the most unjudgmental, like, awesome people. But it's still like, I sit there sometimes and I'm like, wow, how would I have turned out? Like, what mistakes would I have not made?
Right.
If I would have felt that, motherly love,
I think that you kind of hit a nail there when your son understanding that at 8 years old. I mean, that's that's a huge hard hitter. You know what I mean? That is huge. You know, and I've in the last, I would say, year and a half, like I would miss games and events. You know, he's a senior this year.
Right.
I mean, like, you know, talking about back to customers, I have customers all the time mad at me because I can't get a hold of them or I didn't call them back when there's 5 or 6 other people who can answer the same question, you know. So I just quit worrying about that because I was making that more important than putting time with my kids.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I started weighing that out. Like, I've got this customer who's very important to us.
Right.
But, like, I valued their being satisfied with me being the one who called him back over, or going and taking care of the problem over time with my family, you know, and it's a hard transition to make, but back to, you know, how we were raised. Sometimes I think that creates a drive in us that we don't understand, makes us seem a little crazy to everybody else. Like, you know, we have these super ambitious goals and like, I think you have to be a little crazy to do what we do. I think you have to be a little bit crazy and not afraid of, what's next. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be able to take the next step based on the fact that we're just going to make it work, you know, but that drive in us, I think sometimes, you know, not to get too deep, I don't know, I definitely don't have any kind of degree in psychology, but like, we're trying to find that missing thing. You know what I mean? So I think that it makes for excellent entrepreneurs.
Right.
You see young people come from hard situations, and you know, all the great motivational speakers that go out, they've had something hard in their life. They come up hard, and they're not necessarily the greatest speakers or the most well spoken, but they've battled through something. So there's some value and a foundation to what they're doing. You know what I mean? And you know, being good to your team and truly valuing your family. You know, I think that's the hardest thing is nobody can see what we think. You know, even our wives. You know what I mean? Even when we're complete, you know, assholes. You know what I mean? We come home and there's a towel on the floor, like, what's this? You know what I mean? Or the dishes aren't done. Like, why aren't the dishes done? You know, it's the first thing we say. You know, it's like somebody walking in the door, hey, I need this, and this done. You know what I mean? Because your wheels are doing this. But I think that, you know, this doesn't justify our actions when we're acting that way. But at the same time, you know, we all we want is for them to be pleased and happy and taken care of. You know, all we want is our kids to have what they need and to be happy and to be taken care of. You know, when you say you sit sometimes and you watch that relationship with your wife and son, you know, I do it all the time. You know, I'll sit back and see how they interact, and I'm like, that's deep. Like, they are like, a mother cares for their kids and in a deeper way than we could ever imagine. You know, and I think that, you know, we grew up in single father households, and I think that's why we admire that so much. There's no drama with it. There's nothing dramatic. It's not a big deal. It's natural. You know, and we sit back and watch that, and to us, it's like, that's special. You know, and a lot of people wouldn't get that. You know what I mean? So I think that even with all the bad and the muck, I mean, to me, that's something sometimes I look at and I'm like, I joke all the time, like, even if the business failed my marriage and I was divorced, I would never talk bad about my wife. I would never run her down into the ground. And I would always support her in the fact of being a mother for my children. Like, I would always, because, like, even if, I tell this to friends who go through divorces, like, if you have kids, like, it doesn't matter what you did or what she did. All that matters is, like, that relationship. You know, because you didn't have that, I didn't have that, you know, and because of bad adult decisions, you know, and so I would never. I mean, this sounds. My buddy and I joke about this all the time, and he's like, I was like, he said one time, he goes, my wife could have 3 affairs on me, and I'd be like, all right, I'm leaving, but she's still the mother of my kids. I wouldn't even go out in public and tell her why I left. He's like she could blame me, and I looked down, I was like, man, that's pretty cool, you know. I was like, as silly as that sounds, you know, that's pretty cool because, and you know, I think I do the same thing. I think you just value that relationship that your wife has with the kids so much. One, well, I think it has twofolds. I mean, sometimes we're real jerks about it, because we're jealous of it. You know, when they're down on us because we're not home, and they are, we're like, I'm gone so you can be here. But again, I said earlier, like, we can make excuses for everything we do, right or wrong. You know, I could work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and never get caught up. because I'm always pursuing more work.
Oh, yes.
You know, so we have to be able to find that shut off switch. It doesn't make it to, I know to me, I don't know how it makes me feel lazy.
Oh, absolutely.
If I don't get so much stuff done. If I'm not the first guy to work, like if I'm at a meeting somewhere, like I find myself, I just noticed this summer, I find myself telling the guys how early I got up and where I was while I wasn't there.
Right.
Because I gotta be the first guy there.
Right.
I gotta be the first guy to bed, you know. I'm in a group text with some buddies, and some of them are farmers, and as soon as we get up every morning, it's like lunchtime. Right. Like, what are you doing, you lazy bums? You know, 4 o'clock in the morning, where, you know, somebody wakes up. I know some guy wakes up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go take a whiz. He's like, hey, what are you doing at lunchtime? You know, I know he's not really getting up, but, you know, it's almost like a pride thing. He gets up earlier. So, but I started going in, like, I didn't used to get up at 4:30. I started doing that so I go home earlier. I don't go home earlier.
Right.
I take that 4 to 4:30, 8 o'clock, everybody else gets there. Then I had that 5 o'clock when we closed to midnight, and I was like, I had a guy tell me one time, he's like, you realize you're putting in 10 extra hours a day outside of the work day. He said, can you think you could split some of that time and spend with your family? Right. And I'm like, I said, I could if I got caught up.
Right.
And this guy was an older gentleman. He said, when's the last time you've been caught up?
Yeah.
I was like, I've never been caught up.
Right.
So I don't know, like, we're really chasing a runaway train.
Yep.
But you have to in this world. Mm-hmm. But you have to figure out, like, when I stop running for a minute, you know, and I haven't figured it out yet. I wish I could tell you, how to turn that off. You know, I don't have that answer. You know, I'm sure somebody out there maybe has the wisdom, but it's not me. Well,
and I had a sales rep one time, a customer asked him if I was working. It was on a Saturday. He's like, I don't know, I think you may be off. And I'm like, but I'm never off on a Saturday. Like, even like, I mean, I've gotten better of like that Revolt group that I'm part of. They've had, the last 2 summers, we've had a couples retreat. But you know what? Like, my wife leaves the phone in the room, and she's laying out by the pool, getting her suntan on, and I'm over there. Sales rep's like, hey, what's going on here? Hey, what's going on? You know what I mean? Like, I'm still, and it's like, because I just don't shut it off. And, you know, and that's fine, because, like, my wife has to. Like, that is one thing that, like, if she works if she works Monday through Sunday, come Monday or Tuesday the following week, like, she's going to murder me, because like, she really has to. And, you know, I'm an extrovert, so I get refreshed by having conversations. You know, she's an introvert, where she gets refreshed being alone. And she even told me last night or the night before, last weekend we had 2 birthday parties. I feel like we went out to dinner with a couple of our new team members, there and their spouse, just to be intentional, you know. And then and she told me, hey, she goes, this weekend, like, I want to lay low. And I'm like, okay. And I just got to put in my mental mind, like, I just bought a mini excavator. They cleaned up a piece of property we bought. Then I started cleaning up our current house. And I got it on a Friday. I was so pissed. Like, they dropped it off at like 8 o'clock Friday. Like, I came in the office, did some stuff. The guy called me. He's like, hey, Bob, I'm 20 minutes from your house. So I ran up there, and like, I got to move it like 10 feet. Couldn't even dig anything with it. And so then Friday, it was like 8 o'clock before I got home. I dug stumps out of my yard until 2 o'clock that Saturday morning. And I believe that was the weekend that the kids were at the in-laws. And Emily will tell you that she's just like, I've been out there doing that a lot at night. And she's like, she'll wake up in the middle of the night and be like, man, I sure hope he's okay right now. You know, and she's just, you know, she's kind of used to that. And, you know, same thing like you say about respecting their mother. Like, you know, my dad had a lot of anger towards my biological mother, and I understand. But like, I try to be intentional, like speaking positivity into my kids. Like, your mom's a hard worker. Your mom loves you. Like, your mom's a really good mom. Like, you know, and I just, because I know that they're going to come up with their own opinion and hate their mom, and especially the girls are going to butt heads, you know. But I'm just like, you know, that's my wife. That's your mother. Like, treat her with respect.
Absolutely.
You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's probably the most important thing we do. You know, honestly, you know, is because I think those are the values that create successful humans.
Yep.
I don't care if my kids have businesses. I don't care if they work an 8 to 5. I don't care if they make $30,000 a year or $80,000 a year.
Right.
You know, just as long as they know how to enjoy life and they have a family that they appreciate,
yep.
and their values and their ethics and their integrity is grounded
right
in the same direction. You know what I mean? I don't have expectations, but like, you want them to have the opportunity to not have to, again, do what we did, but again, like you said, those relationships with their, you know, I mean, with their spouses, you hope that they're not chasing the same ghost we are.
Right.
You know?
Well, and you know, you mentioned this, and I think this is a really good way to wrap this up. When you said that, you know, when you see your kid come off that field, you know, Ed Milet, you know who Ed Milet is?
No.
He's a billionaire business owner. His dad was a bad alcoholic, and his dad sobered up. And Ed ended up writing a book, One More Day. Is that right?
Power of One More.
The Power of One More.
So I've listened to the book on.
Okay.
Yeah, I've listened to the book.
And it was, you know, he talks about like when his dad went to clean up. He's like, "Dad, are you going to stay sober forever?"
He said, "One more
and
day."
he's like, "I will for one more day." And as a business owner, like we live by like one more.
Right.
One more. But you know, and Ed talks, and if you've listened to the book or read it, you understand. He talks that like he thinks that when he meets Jesus, that Jesus is going to show him like who he made him to be, and he wants to look and be like he wants to see in the mirror, you know. And that's one thing that like I try to, and I'm not perfect. I cuss too much, like you know. I'm by no means a perfect Christian. Never will claim to be. I try. I want my actions to speak louder than me. Like
right.
I literally had a lady one time that I door knocked. It had missing shingles on her roof, and I knocked the door. She didn't. Nobody showed up. I went to walk away, and they pulled up, and they were getting her husband out, and he was at stage 4 cancer. Like he had a couple weeks left to live, and like I was like, "Ma'am, I sell roofs. I see you need a roof. I see you have a lot bigger problem. Here's my card. And if I can help, let me know." Mm-hmm. And she texted me, and she said, "We get door knocked, and we get high pressured all the time." She's like, "Are you a Christian?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Yeah, I could tell there was something different about you." Because, I mean, they needed a new roof really bad. Easiest sale in the world. Like, let me get insurance to cover that for you. Pay your deductible, you know. But it was like, I saw that, and I'm human. Like, okay, like I want to look and be like, if that was my mom or if that was my sister or that was my aunt, I wouldn't want some slimy salesman like pushing.
Right.
But, you know, I look at it as like the day I meet my maker, you know, we as a believer, we want to hear good and faithful servant. But like, I also want to leave everything that I have on the court. Yeah, I mean, like I guess I want to show up worn out, like
we're only here for a minute.
Yeah.
I say this to my son all the time. We're only here for a minute. Make the most out of every opportunity.
Right.
Every second. It's not don't look too far ahead.
Right.
But every second, make the most out of that moment. You know what I mean? So, you know, I think it is important to end on this, you know, as Christians, you know, I mean, I think that some people think that, you know, people who might be non-believers or kind of in that we put ourselves on a pedestal.
Right.
I'm a terrible sinner. Like,
Yes.
I mean, awful. I mean, I don't deserve the grace
Absolutely.
or any kind of forgiveness. You know what I mean? I make intentional decisions that sin against God.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And we struggle with that, and we ask for forgiveness. You know, help me not do this again or whatever. But I think that it's important that, you know, as Christians and in the positions and the opportunities we've been given, that not that so much everybody knows that we were sinners and we're not any better than anybody else, but like we are who we are because of His grace.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, I believe with all my heart that He sent His Son to die.
Yep.
So that all these terrible things that I do against Him will be forgiven.
Yep.
And, you know, I don't think that I can live a terrible life, but I think that I have to since He sent His Son to die, and I believe that. Like, I believe that in my heart that if I don't make the most out of every opportunity, if I'm a lazy man or a lazy human, you know, I'm going to be a lousy sinner.
Yep.
That's why He sent His Son to die. I mean, could you imagine sacrificing your kid for people that are lousy sinners like us?
Right. I mean, I only got one son.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not giving my son for you.
Exactly.
Like, I mean,
exactly. So, like, if if we don't make the most out of every opportunity, I mean, we can't fear failure.
Right.
We can't fear tomorrow, and I don't fear death.
Right.
Like, I mean, I'm not trying to die,
Right.
but I can't believe in that there's this heaven and be afraid to go there.
Right, absolutely.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm not trying to check out of here, but at the same time, every moment I'm here, I'm going to act like an insane nut, trying to get to the next level so I have an opportunity to do more things with the earthly resources we have. Like, you know, I think that's what people miss in our grind sometimes. Like, I don't think I'm better than anybody.
Right.
You know what I mean? I genuinely don't care. I genuinely, you can ask me, but I don't care about money. Like, I have to have it.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I don't care about it. Like, I'm not, you know, I mean, I live in the same house I bought 20 some years ago.
Right.
But like, I'm here because, and I'm going to go to heaven someday.
Right.
By God's grace.
Yep.
And so if I'm here just hanging out, that's a slap in the face.
Right, right.
You know, like if I sacrifice my son for you and you just go sit on your couch and watch TV until the end,
Right.
and don't do any good, even with all the dirt you have,
Yep.
you know, you can still plant some grass over here.
Yep.
So I think it's important to end on. I think that's a great way to end something like this. You know, we're only afforded the opportunity to live here on earth by the grace and, you know, the blood that was shed for us. And I think at the end of the day that, you know, there's times it's hard for me to even talk about it because I feel like such a lousy
Right.
human, you know what I mean? And there's times I don't share a testimony or share about God because I was like, I'm too lousy. You know what I mean? Like, I've got like notable sins, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, like, that's why he exists.
Yep.
That's why we have this book to live off of.
Yep.
So no, yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Oh,
I appreciate
absolutely.
it.
Thank
So,
you.
know.
Yeah, and you know, I'll just end on like, you know, Dave Ramsey's famous line is better than I deserve. And it's the grace of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Like that is, and
say
a lot of
that- I
people
say it 100 times a day.
Yeah,
Every time
a
someone
lot
asks
of
me how I'm
people
doing.
don't
Yeah.
understand like the deep meaning of that, you
Right.
know, and it's, you know, if better than I deserve of like my wife, my kids, you know, beautiful wife, beautiful family.
Mm-hmm.
We're both fortunate with that, you know, thriving businesses, and just like I said, like, but I've got a sign in my office that says never, 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 never give up. And like, there's some days that I look back, I'm like, why do I have that there? You
Right.
know, so, but all right. I appreciate your time, sir. Guys, thank you for tuning in to the podcast. And if you knew any mowers, anything like that Aaron can help you out with, go check out his business here, Tri-County Outdoor Power, right?
Yep.
I always forget stuff, like always twist words around. So down in Milroy. So if he can help you out, go support him. He's taking great care of us. So happy customer on this end. So thank you guys and have a great day.